Have you ever heard of the biblical giants? Without a doubt, the most famous of them is Goliath, the giant from Gath, whose story of confrontation with David became one of the most iconic passages in Scripture. But what if I told you that Goliath wasn't the first nor the largest of the giants? Long before him, in the time of Abraham, or perhaps even earlier, there existed a legendary giant, feared and revered, whose name echoed through generations. His name was Arba, the greatest of the Anakim, a figure so imposing that the city he founded came to be known as Kiriath Arba in his honor. Today I invite you to delve into the forgotten story of Arba, the ancient titan of Goliath, and uncover the mysteries of a lost era when giants walked the earth. The mystery of Arba, the ancestral giant of Goliath. Few know the story of this enigmatic biblical giant, a figure who appears in the sacred scriptures as a forgotten whisper mentioned only once. Yet his presence, though fleeting, reverberates through the centuries shrouded in mystery and speculation. Who was he? What does his existence reveal about a hidden past where lost civilizations and colossal beings roam the earth? He was not just any giant. He was the greatest among the Anakim, a race of beings with colossal stature and power. But there is something even more disturbing hidden in this name. Anakim doesn't just mean giants, but carries a dark implication: those who fell from the sky. What does this expression really mean? Could it be a direct reference to the Watchers, the fallen angels mentioned in the Book of Enoch, who rebelled and corrupted humanity? Or is it an indication that these giants were the result of an interference that challenges the boundaries of known history? The Anakim were feared throughout the region, and their presence was one of the greatest obstacles the Israelites faced as they entered the Promised Land. Joshua and Caleb, the leaders of this conquest, confronted these beings in epic battles where the superhuman strength of the giants made them formidable adversaries. But the Anakim were not alone. Other races of giants inhabited Canaan and the Middle East, such as the Rephaim and the Emim, all described as beings of titanic proportions with unknown origins. What happened to these races? Were they completely wiped out or simply erased from historical records? And then, there's a detail that adds another layer of mystery to this narrative. The city of Hebron, one of the oldest and most sacred cities in the world, did not always carry that name. Before the arrival of the Israelites, it was known as Kiriath Arba. What does this name mean? City of Arba, or even more enigmatically, City of the Four. But who was Arba? What made him so important that his name would be immortalized? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, who were the four mentioned in this name? The scriptures tell us that Arba was the greatest of the Anakim, a legendary figure whose deeds were lost in the shadows of time. But why did an entire city carry his name? And what makes this story even more intriguing is the enigmatic mention of the four. Are we facing a mystery that involves not just one giant, but an entire lineage of colossal beings who defied the boundaries of known history? The story of Kiriath Arba raises unsettling questions. Could this city have been one of the last strongholds of giants before their extinction? A refuge where the last lineages of these beings resisted until their presence was erased from the earth. What can the ancient biblical texts reveal about this secret buried in time? If we return to the book of Joshua 14:14-15, we find a direct reference to this mysterious name and its connection to an imposing being. Therefore, to this day, Hebron belongs to the descendants of Caleb, son of Jephunneh, because he followed the Eternal, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Previously, Hebron had been called Kiriath Arba in honor of Arba, the greatest of the Anakim giants, and the land had rest from war. But who was Arba, this almost forgotten figure who gave his name to one of the oldest and holiest cities on earth? Could he have been a ruler, an invincible warrior, or something much older and more powerful? Perhaps a figure who wasn't entirely human? The name Kiriath Arba literally means City of Arba, but there's another interpretation that suggests Arba could also mean four. If this is true, then the name might refer to four titanic figures, four giant kings, or even four entities with a crucial role in a story lost in ancient records. The Anakim were known for their colossal stature and their reputation as feared warriors. But the most impressive aspect is the hypothesis that they could descend from the Nephilim, the mysterious fallen ones mentioned in the book of Genesis. The Nephilim, according to some traditions, were the result of the union between the so-called Watchers, the angels who descended to earth, and the daughters of men. If this connection is true, then the story of Arba and Kiriath Arba could be just the tip of a much deeper mystery, a mystery that dates back to antediluvian times, and a lineage of beings that may not have completely disappeared. What if the city of Hebron, once known as Kiriath Arba, was not just an ordinary settlement, but a sacred and forbidden place whose origins are connected to a story that challenges everything we think we know about the past of humanity? In addition to being a fortified city of giants, Kiriath Arba also became a sacred site. It was there that Sarah, Abraham's wife, passed away, as reported in Genesis 23:2. Centuries later, the name Kiriath Arba appears again in the Book of Nehemiah, mentioned as one of the cities inhabited by the descendants of Judah. However, over the years, the city came to be known only as Hebron, and the connection with the giants was gradually forgotten. What we know is that accounts of giants appear in various cultures around the world, from Goliath in the Bible to the Titans of Greek mythology, from the legends of the Nephilim to the stories of fallen angels. There is an invisible thread connecting these colossal beings to the hidden past of humanity. The term Kiriath originates from ancient Phoenician Hebrew and literally means city. Araba, on the other hand, can be interpreted as the number 4, or in some contexts, simply as fourth. Interestingly, in Semitic languages, the term Arba generally maintains this dual meaning, referring both to the number 4 and the idea of something occupying the fourth position. The origin of the name Arba is subject to various interpretations, which are not necessarily mutually exclusive. According to the renowned biblical commentator Rashi, Kiriath Arba can be translated as City of Arba, referring to a giant of the same name. Some scholars suggest that Arba was known as the fourth because he was one of the 4 most important giants in the region. These giants were Sheshai, Ahiman, Talmai, and Abba himself, forming a group of colossal leaders who ruled the city. Abba's influence was so prominent that according to some traditions, he himself founded the city, which is now known as Hebron. This theory posits that the original inhabitants of the area were all giants with no common-sized people present. The importance of Hebron in historical and religious tradition is significant, as it is mentioned in various ancient texts as a center of great relevance. If it was indeed founded by giants, it would reinforce its legendary and mystical aura, making Kiriath Arba a place of deep interest for scholars and religious people to this day. When Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt and toward the Promised Land, the journey was marked by numerous challenges and battles. Upon reaching Canaan, the Israelites faced various confrontations, including direct clashes with the feared giants of the region. It is interesting to note that the Israelites had a deep fear of the ancient Anakim, describing them as beings of colossal stature and monstrous appearance. The fear was so intense that when comparing themselves to these giants, they felt insignificant, like grasshoppers before imposing creatures. This perception is evidenced in the biblical account found in the Book of Numbers, chapter 13, verses 32 and 33, where the spies sent to scout the land returned terrified and reported, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Enoch. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." This episode reflects not only the physical size of the Anakim, but also the psychological impact their presence had on the Israelites. The account shows the challenge they faced in conquering Canaan and how the fear of the unknown could influence their decisions and beliefs. An interesting fact about the biblical text in the Book of Numbers is that in the original Hebrew, the term used for giants is Nephilim. This reveals that for the Israelites, the Anakim were imposing and feared figures often associated with the ancient Nephilim. Despite this fear, the Israelites did not allow it to stop them from conquering the land that, according to tradition, belonged to them. It is not known exactly when Arba, the great Anakim giant, lived in the area that today corresponds to the city of Hebron in Israel. However, based on the biblical texts, it is possible to assume that it was before or during the time of Abraham. This is because when Sarah died, the city was already known as Kiriath Arba, indicating that Arba was already a legendary figure at that time. Thus, it is estimated that he lived around 4,000 years ago or more. As for his height, Arba is described as the greatest of all the Anakim. To provide a comparative reference, we can examine another race of giants mentioned in the Bible, the Rephaim. The tallest Rephaim recorded in the scriptures was Og, king of Bashan, a giant who also held the title of king. His immense height is highlighted in the biblical accounts, suggesting that Arba could have been as colossal, if not more so, than him. These narratives reinforce the idea that giants were not merely mythological figures, but central characters in stories that shaped the ancient people's perception of the world around them. It is known that the giant Og, king of Bashan, had an impressive height, estimated to be about 15 feet 8 inches, 4.77 meters, with a width of about 6 feet 6 inches, 2 meters, as described in the Bible. However, when it comes to Arba, who is mentioned as the greatest of the giants of his race, no exact measurement is recorded. We can only speculate that his height was equivalent to or even greater than Og's, considering his prominent position among the Anakim. Given that the Rephaim, the race of giants to which Og belonged, reached about 15 feet 8 inches, it is reasonable to assume that Arba was of similar height, or at the very least above 10 feet 3 meters. Although there is no precise biblical information about his height, his reputation as the greatest of the Anakim suggests that he was among the most imposing giants of antiquity. There are also speculations about Arba's possible descendants. Some believe he was the father of Sesai, Ahiman, and Talmai, and even of Enoch. However, the Bible does not confirm this direct relationship. What we know based on the sacred texts is that Arba was an Anakim, and therefore part of this giant lineage. It is important to note that the name Anak often causes confusion. Some interpretations suggest that Anak was a specific giant who lived at that time, but in reality the term Anakim refers to the entire tribe of giants descended from this lineage. So when the Bible mentions the Anakim, it refers to a whole group of giants, not necessarily a single individual named Anak. Thank you to all who followed along. May God bless you and see you soon.